Dear respected Thầy, dear respected brother and sister, and dear friends online. Perhaps some friend is from the other country, other than Germany. This past Christmas, about 7 days ago, we have the Christmas celebration here in EIAB. And I offer a Dharma talk. And our brother in the DVD and CD team, brother Trời Tiêu Giao and Trời Vững Chãi, and now the brother and sister will upload the Dharma talk during the Christmas for everyone to enjoy. And this Dharma talk is a continuation of what we have begun during that Christmas. It is a contemplation for all of us. In that Dharma talk, I invite everyone to look deeply into the baby Jesus Christ and the baby Buddha, and learn to touch the baby Buddha and the baby Jesus Christ in each one of us. The other day, I have a chance to practice walking meditation with a young child. And from time to time, I squeeze her hand so she can look up, and I look at her face. She is so beautiful. She is so beautiful. The child is so beautiful. Her eye is so innocent, fresh, without any idea of what is right, what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. And her eye is full of curiosity, full of love, full of acceptance. And I feel so much love from her. And I also offer a lot of love to her. And today, after the ceremony of offering our New Year aspiration to the universe, I have another chance to practice walking with another two child. And again, I have the same experience. The children are so beautiful. And for the last 1 week, I have contemplated about this little child. It's monastic, we don't have children. And it's monastic, our deep aspiration is to liberate ourselves. To liberate ourselves means that we don't have, we are not entangled ourselves into the worldly life of a marriage, of a marriage, of a small family. But we learn to open our heart to accept the world as our home, to accept everyone in this world as a member of our family. Learn to look at all the living beings, plants, animals, and all other species on earth as our brother and sister, as our parents, our mother and our father. That is the practice of a monastic. So, in a sense, we do not have children, but we also have children. All of the children are our children. And all of the children are not our children. It is a contradiction, but it's true. And I feel so much love for these children, and I ask myself, even though I don't have a blood children, but I am deeply connected to these children. So I ask myself, what kind of heritage, what is the kind of world that I'm going to leave behind for these children? And looking into the situation of the world right now, I ask myself, what can we learn from this pandemic for the last 2 years? This virus come about could be because of a jump from animal species to human species. It could be a jump from this world of animal to the world of human. It could be a jump. It could be an accident from a lab, a biochemical lab. It could be. Who knows? It's a mystery that perhaps we will never solve. But the fact is that this virus has caused a lot of disturbance, crisis, pain and suffering for the whole world in the last 2 years. And what have we learned from this experience? I thought deeply about it. I thought this little virus, it could be a product of nature. It could be an accident, human error. But regardless of what it is, this virus has caused crisis for the whole world for the last 2 years. And I ask myself, how much more damaging, how much more difficulty the human race or the human family will face if we continue this way of life, in which we produce nuclear weapons, we produce biochemical weapons, all kind of advance in technology of war. For the last 6 years in a row, the global trading arm business continue to grow, even though that our whole society is going through difficulty. The economy of many countries, global economy is having difficulty, but the global trading arms business continue to grow in 6 years. And the total sale of 100 largest company in this business have the total sale of 531 billion US dollar. 531 billion US dollar. US dollar in 2020. That is a huge amount. 531 billion. Has to do with developing weapons in different form. And that is the kind of world that we leave behind for our children. Together with all of the difficulty in the climate change, global warming problem, and all of the development in technological area, we have produced social media in which false news, fake news, conspiracy theory is going on everywhere on the internet. There are so many friends, perhaps because of misinformed, because of the mistrust in the government, through the help of internet, perhaps, have refused to be vaccinated. And there are even organized violence against government that is about to happen in different cities around the world due to the misinformation, due to the mistrust. And that is the kind of world that we leave behind for these beautiful children. The scientists said that sooner or later we will have to face this viral crisis. It happened a few years ago already with different viruses. And in the future we will continue to face these difficulty because evolutionarily we as humans are quite apart from the nature. So comparatively evolutionary, we will be behind some other species in the nature. And the microscopic world, the world of virus, will advance, and human species will be in difficulty. And I ask myself, as a practitioner, as a Buddhist practitioner, what can I contribute to the world? What is the teaching of the Buddha that can help us to face the new challenge of the world today? In Buddhism, we talk about suffering. We talk about suffering. But suffering is not when we talk about suffering, it's not a pessimistic outlook. In Buddhism, the fact of suffering is considered as a noble truth. A noble truth. There is the Four Noble Truths. The truth of suffering, and then there are the other three. The noble truth actually can be regarded as the truth. The truth that are perceived or realized by the noble one. That is what it means by noble truth. That are the truths that are perceived or realized by the noble one. In order to become noble, we have to wake up to the fact of suffering. Because suffering is something that will help to move us. Suffering will help us to become noble. Because we will wake up from this suffering. it will help us to shift our perspective. When we experience suffering, there can be two ways of we can experience. We experience the suffering, and the suffering is so heavy, and we are drowned in this suffering. We are locked into this suffering. We are tied into this suffering, and this suffering pulls us down. For example, we have difficulty with our partner. We have a separation or we have a divorce. And we suffer deeply. And because of that suffering, we drown ourselves into more suffering by going to the bar, indulge ourselves in liquor, in alcohol, in different kind of entertainment, different type of sexual pleasure, sensual pleasure, so that we can forget our suffering. So suffering leading more to suffering. And this is not a noble suffering. This is the worldly suffering. Worldly suffering. And this, in Buddhism, it is called the vicious circle of samsara. The vicious circle of samsara. We have a strong emotion. And due to our strong emotion, we continue to act. We continue to behave in a certain way that we strengthening our strong emotion, our pain and our sorrow. We strengthening these emotions so that we become a victim of our own emotion, and we cause the other people to become a victim of our own emotion. And that is the vicious cycle or circle of samsara. Samsara. And that is suffering. But there is another way to suffering. There is a way that when we get in touch with suffering, we go up. We become noble. This is the noble suffering. When we are faced with suffering, by looking deeply into suffering, by understanding our suffering, we understand the cause of our suffering. The cause of suffering. And by understanding the cause of suffering, we can do something to end it. So ending the cause of suffering. We can end the cause of suffering. We find the path to end the cause of suffering. And these four aspects, to realize it is suffering, to realize the cause of suffering, to realize that there's a possibility to end all of the cause of the suffering, And there's a way out. There's a way to the possibility of ending all of the cause of the suffering. And then that suffering become noble suffering. It's called the noble truth of suffering. Because by understanding suffering, we wake up. We fully realize the noble path, the way out of suffering, that we can overcome our suffering and liberate from our suffering. So what have we learned for the last 2 years? During this type of pandemic, what have we learned as a society? Are we able to wake up from this accident? It could be a natural accident, it could be a human accident, regardless of what it is. Are we able to wake up from this and to look deeply into our life and to see what have we been doing? As a community, as a society, we have to look deeply into the way we live, we have conduct ourselves, and to understand that all of the suffering that have come about had come from within us, from within each one of us. We have not been able to come back to be in touch with ourselves, to understand our suffering, and because of that, individually, we have created suffering for ourselves and for the other, and collectively, we have created the suffering for ourselves and for the other people, the whole world. I have contemplated for the last 1 week, and I have come up with a kind of mindfulness training that I would like to propose to everyone. We can, in our own capacity, in our own position, in our own way of life, we can modify it so that it can adapt to our own situation. It can adapt to our own circumstances, in our own position in the society. But it is something that I come up with. And it become a resolution for us as a community. And I'm going to read this in English. We have read it before the offering our New Year aspiration into the fire in the stupa. I will read it in English, and I invite Sister Samgin to come up, or Jillian to come up, and to read it in German. First, I read it in English, and then we listen it to the German translation. For me, the last 2 years is really an accident, really an incident for us to contemplate and to wake up, a total wake up. Not only at the individual level, but at a collective level. And I call it a mindfulness training for peace on earth. Aware of the suffering caused by the potential for our human family to destroy itself, and through unmindful or reckless action, extinguish all life on earth. We are determined to nurture a culture of honoring the sacred web of life that sustains us. This we shall do by committing collectively to practicing mindfulness and leading lives of nonviolence and peace based on our insight into the interconnectedness, interdependency, and interbeing of all forms of life on earth. We shall practice collectively as well as individually in ways that stop all acts and behaviors contributing to the destruction of our human family, other species, and our planet. These destructive actions include the development and production of arms, such as nuclear and biochemical weapons, and advanced technology for waging war in cyberspace and space. The destructive action we seek to end also include the misuse of social media and other media to manipulate human minds and emotions in ways that generate confusion, mistrust, anger, hatred, and violence within our human family and cruelty to other species. We shall channel humanity's collective energy, material wealth, and spiritual resources towards positive, wholesome actions that help people learn about, understand, and trust each other, that nourish our existence as one human family among many species, and that protect our sacred Mother Earth. With openness and humility, we shall learn to embrace each other culturally, politically, socially, and equitably. We shall respect diversity of ethnicity, gender, age, and religious or other beliefs, so we may build and nurture on earth a human family that is at peace with itself, with all living beings, and with the planet.
Eine Achtsamkeitsübung für Frieden auf Erden. Im Bewusstsein des Leidens, das durch das Potenzial unserer Menschenfamilie entsteht, sich selbst und durch unachtsame oder unverantwortliche Handlungen alles Leben auf Erden auszulöschen, sind wir entschlossen, eine Kultur zu pflegen, bei der das heilige Netz des Lebens, das uns nährt, geehrt wird. Dies werden wir tun, indem wir uns kollektiv dazu verpflichten, Achtsamkeit zu üben und friedvolle, gewaltfreie Leben zu führen, basierend auf unserer Einsicht der Verbundenheit, gegenseitigen Abhängigkeit und des Interseins aller Lebensformen auf Erden. Gemeinsam und als Individuen werden wir so praktizieren, dass jegliche Handlungen und Verhaltensweisen ein Ende gesetzt wird, die zu der Zerstörung unserer Menschenfamilie, anderer Spezies und unseres Planeten beitragen. Diese destruktiven Handlungen schließen die Entwicklung und Produktion von Waffen ein, wie zum Beispiel Atomwaffen und biochemischen Waffen und fortgeschrittenen Technologien, um im Weltall und online im Cyberspace Krieg zu führen. Die destruktiven Handlungen, denen wir ein Ende setzen wollen, schließen auch den Missbrauch von sozialen und anderen Medien ein, die den menschlichen Geist und menschliche Emotionen so manipulieren, dass Verwirrung, Misstrauen, Wut, Hass und Gewalt in unserer Menschenfamilie und Grausamkeit gegenüber anderer Spezies geschaffen werden. Wir werden die kollektive Energie der Menschheit bündeln, um kollektive Energie, materiellen Wohlstand und spirituelle Ressourcen auf positive, heilvolle Handlungen zu lenken, die Menschen dabei helfen, voneinander zu lernen, sich zu verstehen und vertrauen, die unsere Existenz als eine Menschenfamilie unter vielen Spezies nähren und die unsere heilige Mutter Erde schützen. Mit Offenheit und Demut werden wir lernen, uns zu umarmen, kulturell, politisch, gesellschaftlich, auf Augenhöhe. Wir werden unsere Vielfalt achten im Hinblick auf Abstammung, Geschlecht, Alter und religiöser oder anderer Überzeugungen, damit wir auf Erden eine Menschenfamilie erschaffen und nähren können, die in Frieden lebt, mit sich selbst, mit allen Lebewesen und mit dem Planeten.
When looking deeply into the suffering that we have right now, as a member of the human family, then I ask myself, what are the root of the suffering? What is really the root of suffering? What is the cause of the suffering that have led us to this situation in the world? Then I see that for 2,500 years since the time of the Buddha and 2,000 years from Jesus Christ, we have not been able to learn to open our heart, to really love each other and to accept each other, because we are limited by a particular view. And what is that view? That view is that we see that we are separate from each other. In our family, we are different from our partner. We are different from our children, our son and our daughter. At the social level, we belong to this group and we are separated from the other group. At the level of nation, we belong to this nation and we are separated from the other nation. Our life is compartmentalized. We live a life of pocket, in a particular pocket. We create different pockets. I am belonging to this pocket of life, a little pocket, a little compartment. I am a monk, and I am different from the nuns. If it is a monk business, the monk decided and should not let the nun know about the monk business because monk. Because the monk is could be higher than the nuns. Things belong to the monk community, nun community shouldn't know it. Or the nun community, whatever decided belong to the nun. And the monk community shouldn't know it. We compartmentalize, how do we say? We compartmentalize totalize, we separate ourselves into the little pocket that we belong to. We are a father, and we put ourselves into this position of a father, separated from the son and the daughter. We are in the position of a mother. We separate ourselves from the position of our son and our daughter. And we grasp on strongly on this particular position, particular group, particular idea that we have created about ourselves. We are not able to go out of our individual group and to see a bigger picture, to see the whole, the totality. We create a kind of illusion about ourselves and an illusion about the other. That we are truly belong to this group and do not belong to the other group. And we don't see the bigger picture. So I named this a mindfulness training for peace on earth. If we cannot get out of our compartment, if we cannot get out of our closet that we lock ourselves into, there will be no peace on earth. Peace on earth is made from the insight that there is interconnectedness, interdependency, and interbeing of all forms of life on earth. This is a crucial insight. It's a crucial insight, and that insight will help to liberate us. In Buddhism, we call it right view. Right view is the beginning of the middle way, the middle path. The Buddha present the path to end the possibility of the cause of suffering. And that path has a factor or a limbs, a factor or a limbs, 8 aspects. The first aspect is right view. Right view. Right view. And with right view, it leads to right intention or right thinking. Right intention or right thinking, right thought. And thanks to the right view, it leads to the right speech. It leads to the right action. And finally, it leads to the right livelihood. Livelihood. If we believe in our illusion that we are separate from the other, then that will lead to the way we think, the way we speak, the way we act, the way we live of a separate life, of a separation. And we are concerned only with our business. When I look at the face of a child, when I'm in touch with the love of a child, this boundary between me and the child dissolves. I feel that I am deeply connected to him or to her. The future of the child is not different from my future. The future of the child is my future. Even though I'm a monk, I also have a future. My future is in the future of all species on earth, all of the plants, all of the animals, all of the other human life, human life on earth. It's about mindfulness. Come back and to enjoy our breathing. The child wants us to breathe. If you can be in touch deeply with the child, whether it is your children, a child, your friends, or a child in this retreat, or the baby Buddha, or the Jesus Christ. And if you can open your heart deeply, and then you see you and the other child are not two separate reality. You and the other belong to the single reality. In Buddhism, in the Yogacara school, the school of mere cognizing, Yogacara school, or the school of mind only, or mere cognizing. That is mere activity of the mind, cognizance. In this school, according to this school, reality is always without duality. Reality is always without duality. The duality that we see, that I am different from the other, this duality between me and you, this duality between this group and the other group, the duality between this social class and the other social class, between this gender and the other gender, all of these compartmentalize ourselves into this little closet is only a construction of our mind. Should I call me a male or should I call me a female? What do you think? Well, obviously, half of me coming from my mother. It's a fact. Half of me coming from my mother. So there are times I behave just like my mother. So at that moment, I'm a female. Because my mother is very, very mindful. And she's very detailed. She taught me since the early time on to be very mindful and to be very attentive to the way I act. And I also learned the deep love, deep compassion from her. I remember the time, now I can bring up that image very easily. It's there with me for many years. I was still a little baby in a little basket. I think about this much. She's washing me inside this basket. And she holding my elbow like this. She rubbed my elbow. And in the Vietnamese culture, usually mother wash their baby and she read like a kind of proverb. Proverb, how do you say proverb? folk rhyme. So there's one folk rhyme that I can still remember that she taught me when I was a little baby inside a little basket, when she rubbed my elbow. She said that when you are older, when you become older, you should love the other people just like loving yourself. In Vietnamese, thương người như thể thương thân. When you become older, when you are older, you should remember thương người như thể thương thân. Loving the other just like you're loving yourself. I was so young, and it's imprinted deeply in my mind. And I think could be because of this seed of idea, this seed of love within her, that I became a monk. I'm a monk in the male form, but it contains the female form. That is the love of my mother. It contains the love, the mindfulness of my mother. So should I say if I'm a monk or I'm a nun? Because deep inside my monkhood is the content of my mother compassion, my mother love. And what she said later on, when I grew up, I read it in the teaching of Jesus Christ. That Jesus Christ had taught, you should love your neighbor like loving yourself. And that's the teaching that I received from my mother when I was a little baby sitting in this little basket. Should I say that within me, what I receive is from Jesus Christ, or do I receive it from my mother? Is my mother Jesus Christ also when she taught me that? Because she repeats exactly what Jesus Christ said. So the teaching, you should love the other people like loving yourself. Is it my mother or is it Jesus Christ? Reality is always without reality. That means reality does not have any particular form. We create the form. We create this apparent form, this illusion ourselves. We believe that we are male, we are female, we are religious, we are non-religious, we are atheists, we are theists. We create all this kind of apparent form. This is from our mind. And we believe this creation to be the truth. We belong to the group called unvaccinated group. And we do whatever we can to protect this unvaccinated group. Or we belong to the vaccinated group, and we do whatever we can to protect this vaccinated group. We create all kinds of idea. All kinds of idea, all kinds of conception, all kinds of notion based on a reality that is always without reality. We construct this and we superimpose this construction on the reality. So this is the reality, which is always without reality. But then, from our mind, we superimpose a duality onto this reality. We superimpose a duality into this reality. That is male, female, monks, nuns, vaccinated, unvaccinated, and so on. We create this. And in Buddhism, we call this the imagined nature. The imagined nature. That is a construction of our mind that we superimpose onto the reality. Reality doesn't have this nature. The reality does not have this nature of this or that, one or the other. But our mind creates this, and we put it on to the reality. As if it is the nature, it is a characteristic of the reality. And once we put it on into it, we are controlled by our own illusion. We create this illusion, and suffering begins. We have forgot the fact that we and all living species on earth, all life on earth, belong to this sacred web of life. We are a miraculous manifestation of life on earth. We all belong to this. The earth belongs to this web of life on earth. The chrysanthemum, the rose, the orchid, this pine tree, and all of these decorations belong to this web of life on earth. We are there, inside that, together. This retreat belongs to the web of life. And our friends on life belong to this web of life on earth. When the conditions are sufficient, things manifest. When the conditions are sufficient, things manifest as male. When the conditions are sufficient, things manifest as female. When the conditions are sufficient, things manifest as monk. When the conditions are sufficient, things manifest as nun. Am I a monk or am I a nun? What do you think? You cannot say, because sometimes I behave just like a nun. Because their training is exactly like my training. And sometimes I act with the skillfulness, with the mindful training of a nun. Among the 250 mindfulness training of the monk and 348 mindfulness training of the nuns, there are many trainings that are similar. that are the same. 250 mindfulness training of the monk is not completely different, separated from the 348 mindfulness training of the nuns. There are many training, they are the same. The monk practice in the same way like the nuns. So if when I perform that mindfulness training, am I a monk or am I a nun? So those are the things that we contemplate. To get beyond this particular view about ourselves, to trap ourselves, to imprison ourselves in a particular notion, that's called right view in Buddhism. Right view, there are people who ask the Buddha. The Buddha used to talk about right view. So exactly, what is right view, dear the World Honored One? And in one of the highest sutra on right view, the Buddha said that, well, when I talk about right view, without having any view, it is called right view. Because the moment we have any particular view, we have the tendency to be caught into this view. And that does not become right view anymore. Right view is a perspective in which you are not caught into any particular form. You are not caught in any particular direction. Reality is always without duality. And the potential of human destruction is that because we are caught into this particular view. Many superpowers try to defend themselves. They try to equip themselves with very destructive nuclear weapons. And North Korea president, from time to time, he had these missile tests just for fun. And he is caught into this particular view that North Korea is a nation that is completely separated from other nations. But our life depends on each other. All life on earth depends on each other. We are deeply connected to each other, interconnected to each other, interdependent on each other, interbe with each other. And the potential suffering that human can cause destruction, catastrophic destruction, because of this separate view. Because of this particular view, we lose this reality. We lose the sight of this reality. This is very important because without being able to go beyond our particular view, going beyond the particular appearance form that we have created by our mind, we will cause a lot of suffering for ourselves and for the other. Aware of the suffering caused by the potential for our human family to destroy itself, and through unmindful or reckless action, extinguish all life on earth, we are determined to nurture a culture a culture of honoring the sacred web of life that sustains us. This we shall do by committing collectively to practicing mindfulness and leading lives of non-violence and peace, based on our insight into the interconnectedness, interdependency, and interbeing of all forms of life on earth. This is a very important insight that Buddhism can offer to the world. And it is our practice, it is our training so that we can penetrate this and we can embody this insight within our life. If we can have this insight, then we can wake up from our individual suffering, individual difficulty, and we can help collectively to overcome the suffering of the whole society, of the whole world. This insight is very important. Many times we see our own suffering, we see our own difficulty, our own things, and we are not able to connect to the other. In this new year, this coming New Year's, we should practice in such a way that we can open our heart, connect to the other people's suffering, the deep suffering of the other. And you can begin this by looking into the face of a little child. Learn to connect yourself with a baby. Look into the face of the little child. Feel his or her innocence and ask yourself this question. What kind of the heritage, what kind of the word that I will leave behind for this child when I pass away? When you look deeply into this child and you can open your heart to connect this child, it would be easier for you to connect to the suffering of another adult, of another person. Look into the child and feel his or her love. Feel your love for him or for her, and feel the love that you receive from this child. The child can give you a lot of love. Looking deeply into the child's eyes, and perhaps you will wake up to this noble suffering. You will see that it is a wake-up call for you to see that the word that I leave behind for the child cannot be a world full of suffering, full of the potential destruction. You can wake up to this fact and you feel you become more responsible for the life after on earth. According to the Buddhism, life is impermanent. This civilization one day will come to an end. It is a fact. This civilization will come to an end. This earth one day will come to an end. For sure. Because life is impermanent. All conditioned phenomena have the nature of impermanence. So one day things will change. It is something that we cannot avoid. But during this process of change, we can still do something so that we can reduce the suffering on the way. The Buddha taught the 5 remembrance that we should remember every day. I am of the nature to grow old. There's no way to escape old age. It's very fit for us to think about it for this coming new year. We become 1 year older. I am of the nature to be sick. There's no way to escape sickness. I am of the nature to die. There's no way to escape death. All people or all things that are dear to me today, I will leave it behind one day. I will be separated from it. There's no way that I can avoid it. And my only heritage is the action, the intentional action that I have accumulated over the years. That is my only heritage. So impermanence will happen. Destruction will happen. But we can do things so that this destruction, this potential for destruction can be avoided. Can be avoided. We shall practice collectively as well as individually in ways that stop all acts and behaviors contributing to the destruction of our human family, other species, and our planet. These destructive actions include the development and production of arms, such as nuclear and biochemical weapons, and advanced technology for waging war in cyberspace and space. This is very crucial. And this is very urgent for our modern life. Perhaps none of us have this capacity. But it's very important for us to bring this awareness out and to speak about it. Compassionately communicating our wish to the universe. To share it with the universe. Perhaps our political leader will not listen to it. Perhaps our political party will not listen to it. But this is the deep wish of member of the human family. We are citizens of the world. And it is our responsibility to speak out in a compassionate way, in a peaceful way, this message. That we have to end all of the nuclear development in the weapon industry. It is very crucial. We need to stop all of the act in constructing biochemical weapons. And we have to look deeply into our life whether we have contribute into this direction. In the past 2 years, this little virus, just a virus, that had caused so much disruption in our society. How much more damage that a nuclear bomb or a biochemical weapon will cause to the human family. This is very crucial, and this message should be heard by all the leaders of the world. And all of the leaders of the world, political leaders, should wake up to this fact. Should wake up to the difficulty that we have gone through in the last 2 years. And so we can learn from our experiences. The destructive action we seek to end also include the misuse of social media and other media to manipulate human minds and emotion in ways that generate confusion, mistrust, anger, hatred, and violence within our human family and cruelty to other species. This is something that we can do. We can practice mindfulness into the way we consume social media to be a part of this source of energy on the internet as well as in our own family. It's very crucial now with the social media. There's so many misinformation, mistrust, anger, hatred that has been provoked in different social media platforms. And it's very easy once the emotion of the population is manipulated through this form of communication, then different leader, populist leader, can manipulate the situation. There are people who advocate violence to against COVID-19 restriction. There is a friend from München. She said that, a Catholic friend, she said that she has to move out of München now because she's very afraid of violence that might coming up in the near future to rise up against the COVID-19 restriction. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, a mother called us for desperate to desperately call us for help because her son will join this movement. Organized on the internet, that they will go out and they will barricade the road, even organizing weapon. And this young man, 20-something, this young man, he was contemplating to join the group on a certain day. And that caused so much worry, anxiety, and sorrow in the mother. So she called us for help. The social media is a source of danger if we don't know how to use it correctly. And we can do something about it as a practitioner. If we can use this resource that I said a while ago, $531 billion in the arm industry, $531 billion. Into the aspect of education. or health, or reduce the poverty around the world, then I think that we will have a more peaceful society. And it is really a practice that we can all do. We should channel all of our collective energy, material wealth, and spiritual resource to a positive, wholesome action that help people learn about, understand, and trust each other. The fact that we cannot get out of the pandemic as quickly as possible, because there's so much misinformation, there's so much mistrust, and it's a part of education. Our educational system is not capable to transmit fact to the population. Many people miss out the fact, and they mistrust the correct fact. The vaccination that have been used is based on a technology that has been developed for the last 15 to 20 years. And it is very safe. mRNA is a technology that has been done for decades. But this information will not communicate well to the whole population. So if we can educate people, we can communicate efficiently about the fact, then perhaps we can get out of this pandemic much quicker. So it's a part of education that we are not able to do that. We are not able to educate the population. We are not able to educate the mass. So it's the task of our society to education. So if we can put all of these resources from producing the weapon into the area of education, into the area of developing well-being, then we can really change the situation. It's possible to have peace on earth. With openness and humility, we shall learn to embrace each other culturally, politically, socially, and equitably. If we can go beyond this compartment, this particular view about who we are and the other person, if we can practice to have the right view, and to have the right view means that we are not caught in any particular view, then we can embrace each other culturally, politically, socially, and equitably. We shall respect diversity of ethnicity, gender, age, and religious or other beliefs, so we may build and nurture on earth a human family that is at peace with itself, with all living beings, and with the planet. So this is something that we can contemplate for this coming new year. We can contemplate about our view, how we perceive the world. What kind of the mind, constructive mind that we have constructed. What kind of imagination that we have superimposed on the reality. And to learn to go beyond that, to let go of that. Then the world can have a future. I think it is very important for us to think about this now. A few years ago, I had a teaching tour in Sweden, I believe. And I visit a museum talking about the climate change. And in that museum, they have simulation and education material. That if we don't do anything, if we do not wake up to the suffering that is going on now at the global level, then by the year 2050, there will be a lot of disaster on earth. We are in a position, we are at a very crucial point now in the history of human family, that every one of us need to act. Every one of us need to act in a peaceful way, in a non-violent way, in a compassionate way, so that we can change the world. We are at a critical point right now. Very critical point. And we need to go beyond our own compartment, our own idea about ourselves, our own suffering, our own sorrow, and to connect to the global sorrow, global suffering, for human to have a future. We cannot be compartmentalize ourselves into our own closet anymore. I think that for this new year, if we can make that effort, then our children can have a future. But if we continue to live in our own closet, in our own world of suffering, our own individual suffering, and we cannot connect our suffering to a bigger suffering of the world, the global suffering, then we, as well as our children, might not have a future. It's very crucial for us to do it now. And that is something that I've been contemplating, and I'm sharing this with you today. And hopefully it can give someone here or online some inspiration for this coming new year. Happy New Year to everyone in this room. This is called Heroic March Meditation Hall. This hall here, we name it the Heroic March Meditation Hall because it is a floor that we turn into a meditation hall. And what do we use a floor for? For walking. So it's appropriate to call it the Heroic March Meditation Hall. Hopefully in the next year or so, we'll build a proper hall for all of us. I'm sorry to hear in the Dharma discussion that some of our friends said that when they came here, they know or they felt that it is a cold, and it is cold, and it is cold. That's what they felt here when they come here to EIAB. A friend said that all day long he was thinking, he was occupied with this thought, how come it is so cold here? And how can the monks and the nuns live here when it's so cold? And I'm really sorry to hear that from our friends. I told them that this hall, the Heroic March Meditation Hall, is very good this year. We have tried our best because we have this ceiling. And it's blocked the heat to a certain degree so that the heat does not escape up. In the other year, it's even more colder because we don't have this ceiling. And in principle, we should not have this ceiling. But we have it anyway, so because of our situation. In the 10th anniversary of EIAB, about a few years ago, when Sister Changkham was here and we have the festival, we announced that we will build a meditation hall called Hall of Peace Meditation Hall. In the world, in the America, they have in the football area, they have something called Hall of Fame. So here in EIAB, we will build something called Hall of Peace. Hall of Peace Meditation Hall. And it will be, hopefully we can start the project next year. We have finished 3/5 of this building renovation, and we are now renovating the basement. We hope to do that for our children and teenagers before this Christmas, but we are behind the schedule. If you are interested, then you can go down the basement here and you see the construction is going on. We plan to have an activity room for our children and teenagers. And this year, we are able to renovate the Great Compassion Monastery. And I would like to express our deepest gratitude to all of our friends around the world for helping this renovation. And we complete it in July, at the beginning of August. And we offer this new facility for our friends to enjoy the course and the retreat. So the next project that I'm thinking of is to build this Hall of Peace Meditation Hall, so that it will not be so cold for our friends to come. Hopefully next winter or the winter after, when you come and in the Dharma sharing, you will say, when I come to EIAB, I think of warm, and not cold anymore. So that are something for our community to think about. And I thank you deeply from my heart for your practice, for your spiritual energy, for your commitment to the practice, to your commitment to make this vision of Thai realizable here in Germany. And I think the world needs this institute, not only for us, but for our future generation, for all of the future generation. And we thank you deeply for joining the vision of Thai and to help the world, to help to build a culture of peace on earth. And thank you so much for your deep listening.